Hey, Ross here at Bigwater Fishing. We are doing a little ice fishing recap. I know you guys love ice fishing, or at least the numbers show it, because we have lots of you guys following along when we do the ice stuff. Probably because we don't always get to do it. You know, living here in Ohio, we are kind of right on the edge of that ice belt, so it makes things difficult. Last 2 years, not so friendly to ice fishing. This year we've got about maybe 7 or 8 weeks, but kind of when we start talking about that, I think the biggest thing in the elephant in the room for those of you who don't know, just because I see these links and things get sent to me all the time, you know, like an average conversation is, you know, how far out in Erie do I have to go? Or, hey, I'm just going to head up blind in the morning. Man, this is just not a place that you want to do that. I mean, Lake Erie is dangerous anytime. Ice fishing, super dangerous. A majority of our fishing for, I think this is year 28 for me, I've been going over to the Bass Islands. Requires a plane, requires a lot of preparation. You know, I start doing stuff in about November for that, if not even before, with ordering gear. You know, we're putting fuel, minnows, everything over there, because once the boats quit running, you're stuck. What is there is there. There's not a whole lot going on. Now, fortunately, I have quite a few friends that have operations there, businesses there, and things. And so we have a really neat setup. Those of you who have ice fished with us know that. We don't really go crazy with publicizing it because we can just only accommodate so many people. However, we're working on things so that we can maybe do that a little more moving forward. But with that said, you know, if you want to ice fish with us, kind of getting ahead of ourselves, make sure you get on our list. Add yourself to our newsletter. Almost all of our people are going to come from that, just not the blind calls, you know, a minute before. I understand how people are nowadays. You know, we had tons, and we're fortunate for it, but we had tons of requests, you know, on Thursday night. Hey, I want to go on Saturday. Can you get me in? That's just not going to happen open water time anyhow, because fortunately, you know, we have enough of our loyal customers that are going to book us way in advance. I would encourage you to be careful of someone that, you know, a day ahead of time, especially on a weekend, that has availability for you. Also ask a lot of questions like, do you have insurance? Because as far as I know, I'm the only one in Ohio with ice fishing insurance, just so you know. Same thing, how long have you been a guide? Everybody's a guide. How long have you been doing this? Ice fishing requires a little less, believe it or not, things than open water does. And it's kind of crazy because we really should have more regulations, if anything else. But nevertheless, off the islands there is where we were doing our stuff. The main lake, I know there was guys that were going, you know, just offshore in a few areas and catching fish. And unfortunately, you know, guys put things on Facebook and everybody thinks you can run all over, go all over. There was also quite a few people rescued. There is no such thing as safe ice, as they like to say, but some of those areas and those people posting things on Facebook, a little irresponsible because it's just so unsafe, and then the things are changing so quickly by the time you even read that, let alone go. But at any rate, islands, that's where we're doing a lot of stuff. Does require a plane. It's not a last second deal. It's not as, you know, it's not the cheapest thing to do either. I mean, there's a lot involved. We have a lot involved on our end in order to do that. The other thing with ice fishing, I think sometimes people don't realize, is it's not something where you're slamming them nonstop. You know, it either goes like perch fishing or it goes like Dead Sea. And I think a lot of the guys, you know, that just stick with it are the guys that catch them at the end of the day. And there's these just little periods. And I swear, you look away, you get on your phone or something, here comes a pod of them in. It's crazy how that works. But I get that all the time. Hey, how many fish did you catch? Or, you know, sometimes it's one here, it's one there, and then all of a sudden we get these little periods, you know, where we load them up. But if you're not working hard, not sticking with it, you're not going to get that. And so that's really a misnomer thing, I think, with ice fishing. It's almost like fishing really early or really late season in a boat, kind of that same deal where you just got to keep grinding, keep going. I will tell you this year, especially if you guys have watched our social media, you kind of saw we caught a lot of big fish. Probably the most big fish we've had in the last decade. Now, granted, the last decade we've had very limited ice stuff, so that really didn't help us out a ton. But this year, man, we caught a lot of big fish. Now, part of that was we were kind of trying to target them a little bit, but again, you know, targeting big walleyes, you can say that you're doing it, but that doesn't mean that you are. But a lot of big fish came in, and we'll get into some of the lures and things in a bit, and that's kind of why I think that happened. Another thing out here is, you know, we tend to set ourselves up, and you can't, first off, you can't go where you want to go. You go where you have safe ice or you can actually get to, which is kind of a crazy thing. You know, you get the big cracks out there. A lot of the guys know the major crack known as 911. It's called that very appropriately. And, you know, messing with that stuff is bad. So a lot of times we are not going where we want to go. We're going at the path of least resistance, I guess you could say. And because of that, we kind of try to get these reproducible areas, is what I call them. So a lot of guys are always surprised that, you know, we don't move around as much as maybe you might think. This isn't like pan fishing where you're just, you know, hole trolling or whatever you want to call it. we're basically like tree stand deal. That's what we're doing. We're tree stand fishing. You know, we tend to sit in these high percentage areas and, you know, let the fish kind of go through. And at times that can be a little boring. When it's going, it's very much not boring, especially if you guys, did you watch our video? Little day on the lake there, kind of that deal. Think of this as not a deer drive, but as a tree stand fishing. That's why, you know, we do move, but not as much as you might think. That's a big misnomer, and I know a lot of the questions that we had, even, you know, guys that were fishing with me this winter. But anyway, breaking gear, that's another one guys ask all the time. We fortunately, you know, work with a lot of the manufacturers. We test a lot of the gear. I can't tell you exactly what we were testing because then I get in trouble. But we tested a lot of gear. We broke some stuff. You're always going to break things. I mean, just some of the ways we go through things, especially getting on and off the lake, and as things change, it's brutal on the equipment. Fortunately, some things failed because then, you know, you guys don't have to have stuff that's going to break. Fortunately, we had a lot of stuff that passed. So I think I'm excited to see you guys are going to have some neat gear moving forward coming out, because this ice is just really hard on them. I mean, I just can't tell you how bad the gear is on that stuff. But any rate, lures, that's what you guys love and you want to hear about. So Rattle Streak, Silver Streak Rattle Streak is one of my favorite lures. It's like the VMC Rattle Spoon. It's a little flatter, but the big thing is we're using that instead of the VMC Rattle Streak at the times we need the heavier weight. So we have a lot of currents in some of these areas, like we talked about with the tree stand. You know, you're in bottleneck areas. We have a lot of current, you know, on Lake Erie. We just do. And when that's kicking, the traditional ice fishing stuff, where a lot of manufacturers only go up to 3/8, it's just not enough weight. You can't even see the thing. I mean, it just blows right out. So we're using that, you know, up to 3/4 on the Rattle Streak. One of my favorite lures. Lipless this year, that was kind of the shocker. You know, we had some off-colored water at times, mainly because of the current stirring things up, I think, and especially when the lake was open other places. And that off-colored water is almost, I got to be honest, when I was looking at it, I was like, ugh. You know, you look down there, caught a lot better fish in there because I just don't think the fish were as spooked. I can't tell you how much spooking makes a deal here, kind of sidebar. Guys that are making a lot of noise, running around, walking around. I watched it many times in the Mega Live when guys, even on four-wheelers 100 yards away, just totally skedaddled our fish the minute that they, you know, started running. Big deal. Got to be quiet. We had one guy who was, you know, maybe 30-40 feet away from another group, one of our other guys, and he's like, I'm not seeing anything. And, you know, I walk over there, and he's dug his heels into the shack. You just nervous energy or whatever, into the ice there, probably about 3 inches. And I literally like grabbed his knee. It's like teacher style, bad none, bah, smack. And I'm like, dude, you got to quit making noise. And he thought I was nuts. And I literally had my hand on his knee like the teacher would. And all of a sudden the fish start showing up. It really does make a difference. Things are amplified down there. I can tell you, regardless of where you fish, really work on the noise thing. You've heard the stories in the past, maybe seen some of our articles, guys throwing, you know, coffee mugs and different things, jugs and stuff on the ice. Huge bad deal. Noise just makes a crazy difference. A lot of times we're not even moving our lures, and it's really tough to get guys to do that are fishing with us. Like I walked in the shack the one time and I was like, guys, just try it, because, you know, I'm 20 feet away and I'm catching them, seeing them good. They're saying they're not 20 feet away. We're in an open area. It's not a wing dam situation where it's spot on spot. And the guys, you know, long story short, were like, well, I'm not moving. I'm like, well, your buddy's over here jigging away and he's 18 inches from your lure. So sometimes you need to bury them right in the mud. But stealth all the way around, from above the ice to below the ice, really makes a difference. You know, using the lightest line that you can use, I've dropped down to 10-pound P line. It's very small stuff, like 11 thousandths top end. Then using a P line leader material, 10 or 12 pound test on that makes a huge difference. Small terminal tackle makes a huge difference. But getting back to the lures, so lipless stuff normally doesn't work, and I think it goes along with that kind of finesse deal, where, you know, typically they don't work as good. Now with that off-colored water, they worked well. Also, I should note that it wasn't ripping them, generally speaking. It was kind of a subtle deal. Even sitting still, I caught a few. So something maybe to, you know, keep a few in the arsenal. We couldn't be talking about ice fishing and not talk about the jigging wrap, Rapala jigging wrap. Awesome lure, caught a lot of big fish this year on it. Probably didn't catch as many quantity-wise. A lot of times I think of the jigging wrap as kind of the decoy. It brings fish in just sitting there motionless as a second rod. So I like doing that. Also, we've been messing with some stuff like the bladed trebles on the jigging wrap, as well as other lures. The bladed stinger. Wow. Don't say I didn't tell you so on that. That at times was really, really good. That tiny, tiny willow blade, just a little bit of flash. It seems to really be a closer. I'm definitely going to be carrying more of those moving forward this year. That was a definite eye opener on how well that the bladed treble worked for us for kind of sealing the deal. Even caught fish on with bare, no meat with the jigging wrap because of that. But anyway, other thing with jigging wrap is I would say go small. You want to use a smallest one that you can get by with. Again, just like the current, just like any type of jig situation. And speaking of jigs, caught an awful lot of fish. Those of you that watch really closely, and I know many of you do on our social media, a plain tungsten jig was absolutely fire. I caught some of my biggest fish on that is kind of the closer when they just wouldn't close on anything else. And when I say tungsten jig, I'm talking literally like small stuff, smaller than even an 1/8. I think at one point I had a 16th down there. But the thing I like about the VMC Moon Eye is it has a really good hook. It has a little bit bigger hook on that 1/8 ounce. I believe it's a 1/0. And then it's got a big eye on it. So on some of the smaller stuff, I was actually using some of the stuff that's not quite out, tease. VMC swim bait tungsten jig. Unbelievable jig for that. We've used that open water as well. Doesn't have eyes on it, so I try to use the Moon Eye because I think that does make a difference. Even the regular VMC Moon Eye, the non-tungsten, it's got a really big eye on it. I seem to like that a lot. And a lot of times that is just the closer, man. I know a lot of guys don't do that. It takes a little bit of a niche to figure that out, to be perfectly honest. But VMC plain jig absolutely needs to be in your lineup. A lot of other places like Saginaw Bay, the guys in the know do that. On Lake Erie, for some reason, guys don't. Some of my old cronies have proven that to me time and time again, and I am a firm believer, and if you watch some of our stuff, you have seen that as well. So last thing, and kind of the elephant in the room, is Mega Live. I've got Mega Live 2 now, and so we started using that. This was the first ice fishing season on Mega Live 2. A lot of you guys have seen our videos and stuff. And, Mega Live 1, it wasn't maybe as nice as we thought or would hope it to be. Now, the caveat to that is with ice fishing in down mode, I've had no issues. Love it. Still using that. You guys saw some of the pictures. When you get into forward mode, it just wasn't, as good or nearly as what we've got with Mega Live 2. Mega Live 2, no excuses. That's game on. It is the real deal. And I know a lot of guys, and I'm sure the comments are going to be there because it's the most controversial thing, I think, in fishing, at least in the last decade. And I don't care if you want to use it or not. You want to buy it. It's out of your price range. I get it. That stuff is all debatable, not debatable. Not here. What I'm here to tell you is what you can learn from that. You want to argue it? Go someplace else. But on the Mega Live 2, what we learned from that is insane. We can see 20 feet out to the side, those fish that, were spooking because of our jigging cadence or what the noise we were making, like we just talked about, or whatever it is. On a traditional flasher, with that beam being so much narrower, you couldn't see that. Now with Mega Live, 2, that you can. The other big thing is a lot of you guys fishing in shacks with multiple people. When we have guide clients and stuff, that's a reality. Now multiple people can fish on the bottom and not fight each other, if you know what I mean. Because when you're on a traditional flasher, you don't know who is who. You just got those bars. You can't see left and right. It's very difficult to tell. Where you can have 3-4 guys all fishing on bottom with Mega Live 2. You're not going to interfere with each other. You can kind of see who's actually going after who. An incredible tool, as well as a rebound deal. So if you watch some of those short clips that we've put on the social media where, those fish are just coming 15, 20 feet off the bottom chasing us, and then they veer off and they come back around. This was definitely the case on the video that we did the day on the lake. Make sure you watch that video. It's about 20 some minutes long. We have a lot of screen time with the Mega Live 2. And those fish actually coming back around for round 2 that are going down. And a lot of guys, with traditional sonar drop down and they shut the game down where that fish is actually coming back around for round 2. You just can't tell that on traditional flasher 2D stuff. So Mega Live 2, real deal. It makes you a much better fisherman. It gives you a lot better education. So that's kind of an overall recap of our season on Lake Erie. We got about 7 weeks in, again, doing what we're doing there, a little different traditional situation. We'd love to have you moving forward, so make sure you sign up for our newsletter or specifically email us and say, hey, put us on the ice list. We can do either one of those. But everything's going to go off that newsletter list just like we do for our regular open water trips. So be careful, be safe, don't be crazy. Ice fishing is it's a great thing. It's one of my favorite things to do, especially for walleyes. but it is super dangerous if you're not really knowledgeable on this. Even with the best equipment and experience, it goes a long way. So thanks for following along. Make sure you watch out some of our videos and such. We've got a podcast, we've got a regular ice fishing video, all that good stuff. So until the next episode, we'll probably see you in a boat on the next one.